Well, guys, I waited all morning, waiting all day, and the Denver Broncos never made a move at the deadline, which isn't surprising. But given the fact that the team is 7-2, which ties them in first place, of course, with the Patriots and the Colts. The Colts have the tiebreaker, but still, first place in the division. This seems like the best chance the Broncos have had to win since Peyton Manning when he retired, and they don't capitalize on it. And it's crazy to think that Jalen Waddle could be a Denver Bronco right now had the team just moved a first round pick. You're 7-2. 7-2. That's a late first round pick for one of the more prolific receivers in football. Waddle on the season has 586 yards, which is 10th in football. He's tied for 24th in receptions. He's tied for 19th in touchdowns with 4. And his average is 60th, which if you take, of course, a certain amount of targets, it's going to be way higher, obviously, because one guy catch about 15 yards and be ahead of him. Jalen Waddle should be a Denver Bronco. And again, I'm a fan, a content creator. I'm not a GM. I'm not a coach. It's my job to entertain you guys, and it's their job to help them win football games. But logically, I can't think of a reason to why, again, Waddle is not in Denver right now, unless you take into consideration that the Chargers have invested a lot into their receivers, which I can see that. I mean, of course, they just paid Sutton, Troy Franklin. They used, it was a day 3 pick. They took him in the 4th round. Marvin Mims, of course, was a 2nd round pick. They took Pat Bryant in the 2nd round. So those are draft capital going into receivers. But those guys aren't Jalen Waddle. Like, Bo Nix does not have enough around him, in my opinion, right now to win a Super Bowl. The defense is awesome, but I don't think Nix has enough weapons to legitimately be able to come out of the AFC. I think the Chiefs are going to be a struggle for the Broncos. And, the Colts game, like the Broncos, they would have won had it not been for a leverage. But even in that game, like Bo Nix, he has moments. But just to go get a guy across from Sutton, man, Jalen Waddle would have been so good. That speed, of course. He's also stayed healthy. I think Waddle's missed like 3 games in his entire career, and he's been in the league since 2021. So in 5 years, he's only missed a couple of games. He's got speed, of course. He can stretch a defense, and he would have made Sean Payton's life a lot easier as the play caller. It would have opened up the run game because teams are going to have to take a step back due to Waddle's speed. And you're just talking about developmental players. Like Mims and Franklin are still developing. Obviously, Pat Bryant is still developing. I mean, he did have a touchdown catch. He had his first touchdown catch, which was awesome, of course, working that left sideline. But he's got 106 yards on the season. We've played 9 games, 7-2, right? Defensively, there's not much more the Broncos could have done. I mean, they actually, I think, did they make a move on defense? I don't know if they did or not, but maybe like they could have got more depth. But I think the defense is honestly fine. It's been elite, I mean, without question. But it's the offense that has consistently struggled to push the ball down the field. I mean, they've had their moments, like the Dallas game was awesome. Of course, you talk about the game against the Bengals, that was awesome. The Texans game, like you look at the Giants game, that 4th quarter, where they scored over 30 points in that. Like there's been moments. Yeah, the Giants game, they scored 33 in that 4th quarter. But just you have to realize that there's, obviously 60 minutes of football. There's not 15 minutes. There's not 10 minutes. You have to play high-level football for 4 quarters if you want to win in this league. Yeah, the Broncos, I mean, they've had 2 dominant wins this season against Dallas, who might have the worst defense in football. They got blown out by Jacoby Brissett and the Cardinals last night. The Bengals, who they just gave up like 50 points. So the 2 games that really wowed you were against trash defenses, probably the worst 2 defenses in football. And then every other game, either they lost or they barely escaped by 1 score. So Denver, they're 7-2. Yay, like awesome. I'm happy they are. But this doesn't feel like a Super Bowl contender. Like I'd put the Chiefs, I'd put the Bills, I'd put the Colts ahead of this team. I think the Broncos are better than the Chargers, despite them beating us. But like, man, if this team had gotten Jalen Waddle, I would have been like, this is a good team. I would have been like, this is a great team. They could beat anyone. Like, bring it on. Like, we want all that smoke. But the Broncos, they needed to make a move, man. I mean, I don't know how you stand pat. Like, I get you put capital into these receivers, but we're talking about a serious chance to win. The AFC is wide open. The Chiefs, for once, which feels like forever, aren't at the top of this division. The Broncos control it. There's still 2 games to be played against the Chiefs. I mean, the Chiefs is in literally 2 weeks, like November 16th, right before the bye, is at home against the Chiefs. And if you have Jalen Waddle out there on the outside of across from Cortland Sutton, your chances go a lot up. And Bo Nix is in his second season, and he's so good when the game's on the line. But why even put yourself into a situation to where you have to kind of rely on the up-tempo late game situation, like push the pace, get ahead early on, play through your defense and your run game, and make everyone's life easier. I'm not a big fan at all of I almost said the Saints, bro. Sean Payton. I'm not a big fan at all about. Sorry guys, it's late. I made like 5 videos today for my channels, but I'm not a fan of Sean Payton and the Broncos getting complacent. It feels like they're doing that. You remember the Saints when they won the Super Bowl? They made an in-season trade. I think they got a corner. That was a while ago, 2009. Like, how do you're basically setting an example of, oh yeah, we don't really feel like we have what it takes. And you could flip that around and be like, oh, we're so confident. Why even trade capital? Why overpay at the trade deadline? Everything's worth more. Like, I get that, but you have to pay up. Like, you want to win, you've got to go out and you've got to get great players. Like the Colts traded 2 first-round picks and Adonai Mitchell, who in last year's draft was a second-round pick. It was a first-round grade to many. So the Colts get aggressive for Sauce. I mean, why the hell are the Broncos not, man? All of a sudden, you're talking about now you have to worry even more about the Colts. Go back and look at that game. The Broncos got whatever they wanted to through the air. With Sauce, it's going to be much more difficult to do that. But you have to scheme different as an offensive coordinator because you can't throw Sauce's way. I mean, quarterbacks don't look in his vicinity. And on the flip side of that, if you're a defensive coordinator, now you have a corner that can press, who can shadow, you can play more man. Like, it's just, man, it pisses me off, bro. Like the Broncos, I feel so good about this team. I would have felt so. I mean, I like where the Broncos are at. I feel like I'm phrasing my words incorrectly. Like, I like where the team's at. I don't love where they're at, man. Like this is a 7-2 team that doesn't feel like a 7-2 win team. Like the Eagles game, they had to score. They were down 14-0, or it was 15-0. No, it was 14-0, and then they went for 2. Yeah, so the Eagles game, they were down, 2 scores in that game, and they had to come back in the fourth quarter. And then we're talking about like the Colts game. They gave up over 500 yards of offense. It was a weird game. The Chargers game, of course, a couple of mistakes. Bo Nix didn't really play that well. The second quarter, if I remember correctly, it was the second quarter was definitely the quarter they got. I mean, not really. It was 7-7. It was so it was the second and third quarter. They outscored them 17-10. But there hasn't been a moment this season against a competitive team where you've been pleased from 15 on the clock to like zeros, right? It's just there hasn't been that, and the reason for that is there's flaws and there's holes with this team, and hopefully they prove me wrong. They've got the Raiders on Thursday, and then, of course, they've got the Chiefs bye week, and then Washington without Jaden Daniels looks like a much easier game on Sunday Night Football. Raiders, Packers, Jags, Chiefs, Chargers. This isn't a tough schedule, honestly. I think the Broncos are pretty comfortably going to win this division, but come playoff time, I don't know how I feel about them. They are going to be at home because they're more than likely, in my opinion, going to win the division, but who's going to be facing them? Like, let's look at the NFL playoff picture. Let's see who the Broncos would be playing in the first round right now. Man, it's kind of scary to think about. So Colts would get the bye. It'd be the Chargers. Chargers coming into Denver. I think the Broncos would get that done. The Chargers offensive line is so garbage. The Broncos would win that game. So that would work out. But if the Chargers fall, which they absolutely could, I mean, we're talking about maybe the Chiefs get up to that 60, the Jags, that's kind of it. Maybe the Baltimore Ravens get hot with Lamar back. That would be a really scary matchup. So, yeah, the Chargers would be amazing, but I don't think the Chargers are going to finish as the 6th seed. I think they're going to fall.